Perhaps what you're hearing is my attempt to emphasize something more subtle, and in my experience, more psychologically accurate. Your old defensive patterns are being challenged and destabilized. When someone has narcissistic traits, there's usually a safe place, an inner zone they retreat into to restore equilibrium. For some, it's the illusion of the grandiose self, the fantasy of competence, superiority, or control. For others, it's not overt grandiosity at all. It's a psychic territory, a private internal world where they slip into when the real world feels too demanding or too exposing. In other words, narcissistic functioning isn't only about showing off, it's also about withdrawing, hiding. It's a defensive posture organized around the fear of contact. Genuine contact, that is. And this is where the work of John Steiner comes in, and it's really relevant. Steiner is a famous psychoanalyst, and he wrote extensively about, again, I quote, psychic retreats. And I find this concept incredibly useful when thinking about narcissism during the holidays. A psychic retreat is a defensive withdrawal that limits genuine emotional contact with others. It's not simply being introverted or needing space. It's an internal sanctuary built to avoid anxiety, shame, and the potential pain of needing too much or being seen too clearly. Steiner described the retreat as a place where the person becomes unreachable, insulated, and protected, but at a cost. In this retreat, you avoid other people, and importantly, you avoid reality. You avoid genuine feelings, interpersonal conflicts, disappointments, and any situation that might activate a deeper vulnerability, whatever that vulnerability might be. You could see this retreat in countless forms. In other words, it presents in many different ways. The guy who becomes obsessed with working out, dieting, and the precise number of hours he must rest, recover, and sleep. This is a retreat into bodily control. The woman who immerses herself in hours of reading, a deep commitment to her pet, or familiar old movies, a retreat into comfort and predictability. The more vulnerable narcissist who clings to one-on-one intimacy but cannot tolerate groups, a retreat into a controlled relational environment. The main point here is that in these moments you become stuck, cut off, and out of reach. But, and this is crucial, inside the psychic retreat, you are not simply hiding. You're also trying to protect a fragile internal self from becoming overwhelmed by the emotional intensity of the holidays, the expectations, the comparisons, the family dynamics, the closeness to old wounds, and the exposure to relationships that you can't easily manage or predict. Whether the retreat is idealized or persecutory, it becomes something that the person clings to as a preferable mode of functioning. In Steiner's terms, the psychic retreat serves as a protected area of the mind, a place where reality doesn't have to be faced, where fantasy remains unchecked, and where the fragile self can feel safe from scrutiny, disappointment, or emotional demands. Inside this retreat, omnipotence can exist unchallenged. One can maintain the illusion of self-sufficiency and total independence. And when the retreat is working well, and I quote well as if it can, because remember, it comes with certain consequences, but when it's working well, it can feel deceptively stabilizing. There's no friction, no emotional exposure. Nothing happens to disturb the protective bubble. Sometimes the retreat is so successful that this person experiences very little anxiety, as long as the system goes unchallenged. No one intrudes, no one demands, no one sees too much of you, and no one gets too close, not close enough at least, to activate any genuine feelings. But the cost is profound. Despite the suffering the retreat inevitably brings, the loneliness that feels both chosen and resented, the obsessive controlling preoccupation, the rumination that never leads to relief, it remains the preferred mode of psychic functioning. So what I'm pointing out is, this is the cost, right? It seems like such a safe bubble, but in it you end up feeling moments of intense loneliness. And these obsessive thoughts don't go away. That's the ruminating that I mentioned earlier. But I'm saying despite this, it's still the preferred mode of psychic functioning. So the psychic retreat becomes the, and I quote again, solution. I'm using this word loosely, but it also perpetuates the problem. It becomes the solution, but perpetuates the problem. I'm saying that twice, yes. And this is why the holidays are so destabilizing, because the problem never goes away. Family gatherings, increased closeness, and social expectations threaten the retreat. They pull you out of your safe space and into a relational reality, the very thing the retreat was designed to avoid. When closely explored, I've discovered that the internal message at times sounds something like, I can't stay hidden here. They want something from me, and they expect something that I don't think I could deliver. When the inner retreat gets challenged, the psyche can move in all kinds of directions.